Good evening, sports fans, and thanks for tuning into the press box here on Tuesday night. My name is Jeff Richardson. I'll be your host. And as usual, I'm joined by the usual suspects, Reynolds and Marcks. How you guys doing tonight?
Hey, we're doing good.
All right. For all you viewers who were here a couple of weeks ago, we happened to have a trivia question. Somebody called in and asked us, and we didn't know the answer. And I think, Ty, you found the answer.
Right. The question was what team had the most shutouts for one season? And it was the 1906 Chicago White Sox. They had 32, and Big Ed Walsh had 10 of them.
All right, so how close have the Braves come to that? I know they had quite a few last year.
I don't think they were very close. As a matter of fact, the closest modern teams that I could find was Jay's choice, the 64 Dodgers. They had 28, and the 68 Cardinals had 30.
Mm-hmm. Well, now the caller said he wanted to know whether we thought the Braves had a shot at it. And I'll tell you, now that I know it's 32, no, they don't have a shot at it.
Well, didn't they have about 20 last year, and this year's staff is a little bit better, maybe?
Yeah, but they're not shutting anybody out.
Okay.
Nope.
Well, this is probably one of the busiest weeks for sports that we could have. You got the NBA Finals, or not the NBA Finals, but the semis.
Conference Finals.
Okay, and then you got the NHL Finals, and of course we're in the middle of the baseball season, so let's get right to business. Before we do, though, the phone number is 873-6713. Feel free to call us if you have a comment. Ty, NBA playoffs, what does Chicago need to do to win?
Well, Chicago got great performances. When they came back to Chicago Stadium, they got really key performances in Game 3 from people like Paxson, from Pippen, and B.J. Armstrong. And so when they had a 20-point win, that caused Pat Riley to make some changes. So in Game 4, Riley loses a little bit of concentration on Jordan, figures that maybe he can get a really good defensive game out of John Starks, and then focuses a little more on some of the other players that hurt him in Game 3, and that just ended up being a total disaster for New York. Jordan had over 50 points and was really spectacular that game. So Chicago, if they keep getting performances like that out of those secondary players behind Jordan, they're in pretty good shape. But doing that in Madison Square Garden, I'll believe it when I see it. New York's played them tough up there.
Yeah, you know, the big thing here is home court. Chicago shot like 30-some more free throws than New York in Chicago, where it was kind of even. And I think Pat Riley made a point today about the officiating is really slanted towards Jordan. I mean, here's a guy, he went to the free throw line like 14 times, and he was shooting jump shots, whereas they lobbed the ball down into Patrick Ewing, and he's just getting hammered. And there was one particular call yesterday where Cartwright came down the court and ran into him, and they called a foul on Ewing. It was like, officiating in the NBA is so home court slanted that I think that's why you see the home court advantage being retained in these series.
A pretty good example to show is that in Game 3, Michael Jordan was 3 out of 18. However, he was 16 out of 17 from the free throw line. So, yeah, I could go along with that.
All right, Ty, you mentioned Pat Riley, and I'd like to get and talk a little bit about him. But right now we have a phone call. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead. Do you have a question?
My name is Jonas. My dad is a referee in the NBA, and I was talking to him the other night. We're going through our video library, and you know what I was thinking is about Len Bias. You know, he was a great player, and I was just wondering, you know, what happened there, because, you know, my dad, one time he was reffing, and he came up and Len Bias said something to him before the game, and my dad, he was really constipated, and during the game he had to leave the court, and Len Bias came up and talked to him and said a lot of nice things, and is he playing now? And,
Len Bias? He's
Yeah.
the guy that died of
died.
a heart failure from a cocaine overdose.
Oh, so that's what happened.
Yeah.
Well, I must be thinking of someone else then.
Probably, because I think Len died the day after he was drafted.
Yeah, that was
he
Boston's
never even
first
played
pick.
in the
Well,
NBA.
he wasn't playing. He was in the bathroom.
Oh. Well,
When my dad talked to him.
thanks for your call, but I'll tell you maybe
What do you think about the whole situation?
the Len Bias
The
thing?
Len Bias situation?
Or I think the referee situation, both of us, I think, from what we've said so far, feel that it's more or less been a home court thing. Here it is when you look at the box scores, especially these two games in Chicago. I believe the Bulls shot more free throws both times, but I think that's
30
something.
more.
I think that is more or less prevalent in the NBA. Although I think Pat Riley was basically looking at the difference in the numbers.
Well, he said also along the Pat. You want to talk about Pat Riley? He's saying that the Knicks are going into this thing with a reputation preceding them, saying that they're too physical and so they're being picked on. I don't know whether Riley's working the media or working the refs, but it did seem if you've watched I've watched parts of all 4 games, and the Bulls, they're getting the calls. They're getting the referees' calls. I'll tell you that much right now. And the Knicks are playing more physical, but there's a couple times where it's questionable. It's like you got 3 officials, and I question what they're watching. They're all 3 must be watching the ball. They shouldn't all be watching the ball because there's some horrendous calls in these first 4 games.
We'll see in Game 5.
All right. Of course, Pat Riley coached the Lakers in their heyday. Obviously, he might not have gotten quite enough credit for being a good coach, but now he switched to the Knicks, and they're making a run at the finals here. The guy must have something going on.
Well, I think Pat Riley is just about the best coach there is in the game. I like him and Chuck Daly a lot both. I think what you're going to see Pat Riley doing is he's going to look at the film of the differences between Game 2 and Game 3, I think, and he's going to want to try and get this back to New York's pace of play, where they're very aggressive defensively, and they may be able to do that more at home because of the officiating that we talked about, where it's just one of those things where when you're at home, you tend to get more of the call sometime. I think you're going to see New York be aggressive, and to me, I think Pat Riley wants to hold them down to 45% shooting or less. And once New York gets their defense going, as their defense goes, their team goes. So I think that's really about the critical issue to look at, is that shooting percentage for Chicago.
All right, Jay, the Knicks have home court advantage for the rest of the series. Are they going to be the winners?
Yeah, I think, although the 7th game in New York, I think it's going to be 3-3. It's going to be 7th game in New York, and I'm thinking that's going to be a lot closer than the other games. That might even go into overtime. But then you'll just have if the 7th game goes into overtime, you'll have the team with the most depth, and I think that's the Knicks. And along the lines of Pat Riley, I think one of the things that makes him one of the best coaches in the NBA is he knows how to use all of his players. He'll put some guy in like Hubert Davis.
Hubert Davis.
Yeah, I mean, here's a guy that doesn't play hardly at all, and then they need him to come through for about a 3-minute stretch in the playoffs, and he puts him in there and says, "I got confidence in you," and the guy pulls through. It's incredible how Riley uses the players on his bench to his advantage consistently.
All right. Of course, we have 2 other teams alive still, Seattle and Phoenix. Ty, didn't you go with Phoenix to start with?
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, I went with Phoenix. And by the way, going back to that, I'm going to take the Bulls in this. I felt that the Bulls would be in the final. I'm still going to go with them. Phoenix, right, they were my choice from the beginning when they got Charles Barkley in that trade. And I think Phoenix has too many weapons and can get in a half-court game and a transition game, and no matter what the style is, I think they can win. And I think that's very important. That really helps out Paul Westphal.
Yeah, I think Phoenix's advantage is Paul Westphal. He's very confident, like he said in the L.A. series when they were down 2-0. He said, "No problem, we're going to win the next 3 games," and everyone will say, "God, what a great series." And they're still talking about what a great series that was. And now he's saying the same thing. He's saying that Kevin Johnson was a little banged up in Game 4, that just because they won like 60, they win 60 games, Phoenix, they're expected by the media to just waltz through these playoffs. And he's saying, hey, look, these teams are good. And if they beat them 4 out of 7, then that's fine. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking to trounce teams. They're not looking to sweep teams. And I think Westfall's made a good point there.
I'll tell you what, Seattle really had a good year this year. That was a very competitive league out there in the Pacific West. And Phoenix was getting all the ink, and I just really think that Seattle had a very good season under Carl. Now, they shot about 10 percentage points better in their last meeting up at the Seattle Coliseum, and Paul Westphal just can't have that happen again. Although people like Derek McKee had the game of their lives, and if Carl can get those great performances out of players like that, he's going to be in pretty good shape. But again, you're talking about Derek McKee, who was just on that game. It didn't matter who Paul Westphal threw out there. He threw out Barkley. He threw Marley out there. He threw several players out there at him, and no one could stop him. McKee was really on that game.
All right. I think we have another phone call. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the problem is.
Problem with who?
the problem on the show? What's your problem? What's wrong? You know, it seems like you're arguing, and there doesn't seem to be much point. You know.
Well, we're trying to provide some entertainment. We don't want to agree with each other all the time.
Kids are watching this.
Well,
Okay. Well, thanks for your comment.
Thanks for watching the first 10
comments.
minutes, and change the station if you don't like it. I guess I don't know. Anyhow, back to the NBA.
your problem?
The Hawks have a new coach, Lenny Wilkins. How's he going to do?
I don't know about you, Jay, but I do not like this choice. And
I
don't understand what Lenny Wilkins is doing either. I think he had a pretty good team up there in Cleveland, and I just really don't see him being able to do that much of a better job than Bob Weiss. So,
Well, today they interviewed Lenny Wilkins on the Brave game. I was listening to it on the way down here, and he said he's a firm believer of you have to take a step back before you can take 2 steps forward. Now, to me, that's saying that the Harry Wilkins is a clean house. Now, I don't understand. I mean, if that's what the Hawks want to do, maybe they got a 5-year plan to be back competitive. But as far as Lenny Wilkins goes, this has to be an all-time stupid move. He had a better team in Cleveland. He had a shot at I think, the division at least, maybe even the conference title. Yet he couldn't get it done. So now he moves to a team that has less talent, and they're less focused on the playoffs. And I don't know what unless they gave him multi-millions of dollars. I guess maybe that could have come into play. But I just see the Hawks struggling for the next couple of years.
what I'd like to see the Hawks do is I don't like the job Pete Babcock has done. And what I would have done is I wouldn't have started with the new coach. I would have started with the new general manager. And that's up to Stan Kasten to make that decision. That's what he's there for. And if Stan Kasten can't find a basketball man, a general manager, for someone to clean house, as Jay said, then they need to consider getting another president then. They need a basketball man in there who knows good players, who knows good coaches, and can find these players through drafts, trades. And the Hawks have not been able to do any of that lately, and I just don't see any dramatic changes. I see this as being a mediocre team. 45 wins. To me, I think with the staff that the Hawks have right now, I think 50 wins would be a great season for them.
So you think some major player changes are in hand? There was complaints about Mike Fratello because he rode the team too hard, and then Bob Weiss didn't ride the team hard enough. I mean, it's time to realize that maybe we need some new players.
Oh, I think that was one of the problems all along, is that I just think through the years the Hawks have not been as good as other organizations as getting good basketball players. And that's where you need to look at the top, because these are the people making the decisions, the general managers and the presidents, to get these ball players in. And to me, the Hawks just haven't done that good of a job getting the quality ball players to compete in this league.
I think there's another team up in Swanee that has the same problem, but we'll talk about them later. Let's get back to the phones. Caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, this is Mick Luckhurst. You were talking about home court advantage earlier, the different factors that lead into that, like the crowd and the reffing, and sleeping at your own bed at night. I was wondering, do you think the quality of hot dogs and beer have any effect on the team?
No, I can answer that one. No.
I think Mick has had too many beers tonight, for that matter. But all right, let's get on.
A good kicker in his day.
Yeah. Thanks for your call, and I'm glad to see you lost that English accent.
I really don't believe that was him, but
yeah.
Let's get on to the Braves. We're sort of staggering along here. We might have some team morale problems. Last week, Terry Pendleton walked off the field in the middle of a ball game. What's going on?
Well, I think Terry's got to be fined for that. I mean, it's good to lead by example, and I'm sure he was upset, and he is, quote, the team leader. But you don't walk off. I mean, that's like a microcosm of Sanders leaving the team because he didn't play. So now Pendleton, he didn't leave the team, but he walks out of the game because he doesn't like what the pitcher's doing. It's like, now what does that mean? Does it mean you get a 3-2 curveball instead of fastball? You can go back in the dugout and say, Bobby, I'm not playing. They're pitching me curveballs. That's ridiculous. I just think something more should have been said. There's too much respect for TP here in the city, and I think they just sort of washed over him walking off. But there definitely is a team morale problem, and the Sanders thing can't help the team morale. I mean, here's a guy they give $11 million to as a part-time player. I still question that.
Well, I agree with you. I think that's got to cause some kind of problems in the clubhouse, and I think Terry Pendleton was upset because Dion was hit by a pitch and we didn't throw back, but I think he sort of forgot the fact that we threw at Chris Sabo to start this, and I think Bobby Cox made the statement.
Well, the difference being was that Sabo wasn't hit and Sanders was hit, and Belcher had way too much control that night. I can understand. I sort of side with Terry Pendleton, although I don't agree with him going off the field. But I do agree with him being upset about that. I would like to see him sit there and pull Freeman over after the game in the clubhouse, keep it personal, keep it between themselves, and then maybe saying, hey, let's realize what happened here. Our guy got hit. We brushed theirs back, but we didn't hit him. They hit ours, and he hit him in the back.
Well, I think Dion made a statement that he wasn't sure if Belcher was throwing at him or not.
Oh, he was throwing at him. He had way too much control that night. He was on. He was really on. So, no, he hit him on purpose.
All right. Well, still on the topic of Dion, of course, he signed his contract, and that probably has got an undercurrent in the clubhouse going. It also means probably Otis Nixon is on the trading block. Is that a good move or bad?
We talked about this last week, and Jay, I know he likes to keep Otis Nixon here. Personally, if it were up to me, I would play Deion Sanders. I think Sanders could really, if you let him off every game, I think he would be one of the leaders in runs scored in the National League every year.
No, he doesn't walk enough. He doesn't
walk enough, but I think he could bat almost 300.
He could, but
and his slugging percentage, I think, would be one of the highest for a leadoff hitter in baseball because he just gets so many doubles and triples and can hit double-digit home runs. I think he could hit 10 home runs if he played in a whole season. But I think he could get so many doubles and triples and be in scoring position so much of the time that anytime he's on base, that it's a great opportunity for him to score.
I do think you'll have to agree that he seems to have a little bit of trouble hitting left-handers right now and is not maybe a full-time player yet.
No, but that'll come with time. He just needs to get in there and face him as much as he can. Okay. Not only that, Otis Nixon's about 34 years old, so.
Well, he looks like he's about 64, so we don't know that for sure.
Well, drugs have taken their toll.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to the phones. Caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I have a great quote from Yogi Berra.
Okay.
Great Yogi Berra.
God bless his heart.
The senior or the junior?
Why don't you shut up and let me say it, all right?
Sure.
Okay. Well, what it is he says, you give 100% in the first 3 quarters of the game, and if that's not enough, you give 110% in the last half of the game.
Well, you think the Braves are doing that?
Do I think the Braves are doing that?
Right. Is that who you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about Yogi Berra.
Oh, okay. So this has no relation to.
No.
Okay.
No, I mean I think it's applicable to a lot of different teams today, but by the looks of it, I don't think the Braves. I don't think they're doing that. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, their fielding's looking pretty sloppy.
You must have seen Dion drop that ball tonight.
No, I mean I haven't watched the Braves in a few years.
Okay.
I haven't been out of the house about three.
Well, we lost that call. Go ahead.
Oh, well.
We'll have some groceries sent your way, and we appreciate the call. Keep watching. Back to the Braves. Where were we?
Well, I think one of the areas where I think that they could concentrate more or where they need some improvement is opportunities. This team keeps on blowing opportunity after opportunity. So often I see guys on third base and one out, and with the pitching staff this good, I mean, 1 run here, 1 run there, in a ball game with guys like Maddox and Glavine and Smoltz and Avery, that can make a big difference and put a lot of pressure on the other team. And they have not been taking advantage of those opportunities. And one guy in particular that hasn't been, that I noticed that's been doing this a lot, has been Pendleton. And the Braves they need someone to come through and take advantage of these situations, because if you don't make the other team pay, it's going to come around and it's going to hurt you, and you're going to lose games that way.
Well, just in the last month or so, Gant and Justice have both heated up pretty good, and I think that's taken a little bit of slack off of Pendleton, and now he can maybe get in there and play the game and not have all the pressure on him, basically.
Yeah, but Ty's point is, well, I think is a good point here. They're not picking up the runs. The last 2 years they picked up runs with outs. Now they're having to get hits. Okay, you got hitters, they may be cranking it up. You may have a 300 hitter by the end of the year, but that's not the point. The point is, with the pitching staff, they're not picking up the easy runs. When you can get a run on an out, you got to take that. And it's just like Ty said countless times this year. And even tonight, I think they let off with a double, bunted him over to third, then the next guy strikes out. It's like you got to get the bat on the ball when there's a guy on third. And I just think, maybe the caller was right. They're not giving 100%, that's for sure. It just seems like they're going through it. But it's a long season. We've said that on the show before. I mean, it's a 162-game season. you can't peak emotionally and physically in the beginning of the year like this. You got to save some, and I think the Giants lost the first game of the doubleheader tonight because they were emotionally up for the series in Atlanta, and they go to Florida and they can't even beat the Marlins. So.
Well, I know we've pointed out on this show before that at the same time last year the Braves were pretty much in the same situation, and
they were worse.
They got hot and won 50 out of 70 ball games, which is a pretty good clip. I think you'd have to agree that this team this year has the potential to be better than that. You've got a very pleasant surprise in Mike Stanton out of the bullpen. The starting pitchers are good enough where the rest of the bullpen is not getting enough work, which is probably good.
Yeah,
right.
If the hitters come around like they're capable of doing, I think this team can win 50 out of 70 easy, and nobody's run away with the division yet. So.
No, but where they're lacking, they may be a little bit better this year, but last year they had hitters off the bench, lifetime 300 hitters, and Treadway and Lonnie Smith. They haven't replaced those guys, so that's even more reason why you don't have the bench strength, so you got to pick up those easy runs that are out there on the bases during the middle part of the game.
I think one of the main things is that the Giants have just been playing well. I mean, the Braves have been playing about, .550 baseball, and the Giants have just really been super so far this year.
That's a good point. All right, let's go back to the phones. Caller, you're on the air.
Oh, do you think the Atlanta Braves like a tough guy? You know, do you think that what Terry Pendleton was trying to do when he walked off the field? Like, ain't nobody taking charge, you know?
Well, I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think he did that. He walked off the field to try to light a fire under the team, maybe give him a little bit of spark. Thanks for the call and keep watching. Ty?
Well, we basically have talked about it, and I think that, well, when you start looking at an image of a team, I think a lot of that's displayed by your manager. And Bobby Cox, to me, is more or less a laid-back type of a person. When you get a guy like Lou Piniella, if he were running this team, I think you'd see a really different attitude in this club. I think that the manager has just a lot of say-so in how your players give an impression out there.
All right, I know we don't have too much time left, and there's one topic that I did want to talk about, and that's the Falcons. They've made quite a few off-season moves. Jay, how are they shaping up this coming year?
I think the best off-season move they made, or moves, were in the secondary. They got this Montgomery guy from Denver, and Jenkins from Detroit, and Clark from Green Bay.
Right, Vinnie Clark. Right?
Yeah, he's a #1 pick. I can't believe the Packers let him go, but they had no money left after the Reggie White thing. But anyway, I think the Falcons, though, they've increased. I think they've definitely helped their defense. Okay, with the secondary, plus the Pierce Holt thing. I mean, that was a much publicized.
Jumpy Gathers.
Yeah. But they let their offensive line go.
Yes, they basically just made a trade.
Yeah, they used all their money on the defensive players that they should have given to the offensive line. Now, this line wasn't that bad. The run and shoot, or the shoot and punt, or whatever they run over there, I mean, that wasn't getting the job done. It wasn't the fact that they didn't have good protection. You know, I mean, Miller got hurt in the open field. He wasn't even sacked when he got hurt. Now they got Bobby Herbert, or whatever his name is. And
Bear.
Yeah, and I'm not foreign, so I don't know how to pronounce those foreign names. But, this guy's going to get killed if they go to a pocket passing game, which Bear is supposed to be good at, that he did excel at with the Saints. They're not going to have the offensive linemen to protect them. And we thought last year the problem was they didn't have a running game. They weren't using the running game.
I still think they don't have a running game. As a matter of fact, they haven't had one for 3 years, and they just decided to give up on it basically this year.
I guess they're going to try and beat teams 6-3 or 3-0 this year with that staunch defense that they signed, wasted all the money on, I guess.
Right. Real quick, Todd, I don't want to cut you off, but let's go to the phones and get this caller on the air.
Yeah, you know what? I think maybe one of the problems with Terry Pendleton, I think he's probably hitting the bottle a little too hard. You think? Yeah, I think you guys may be hitting the bottle a little too hard.
Yeah, not on the show, but afterwards maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyhow, Todd, do you have an opinion on the Falcons?
Well, I agree with Jay. They need to get a running game, and I thought that in the past, I think the Falcons have really blown a lot of picks on running backs. I never liked the Steve Broussard pick when Rodney Hampton was available. Tony Smith, he always seems to be hurt. All their running backs seem to get hurt, so they just lack a running game,
so
and I would like to see some type of an improvement over there. But what can you do when you have all those wasted draft choices?
It's the offensive scheme that's hurting the running backs. It started with Andrews. When they had William Andrews back in the backfield and they decided to go to a one-back set, he got hurt. Ever since then, every time they put a back there, he gets hurt because he's having to do everything. He has to pick up the blitzing linebacker. He has to check off. He has to get the delayed draw handoff. It's just like the era of the one-back offense is gone, and they just need to switch their whole offensive scheme.
I agree with that. I'm not an advocate of this type of offense that Jerry Glanville runs, and if you're going to win a championship, I don't think we've ever seen a team. Have we even seen a team in the Super Bowl with this type of offense?
Well, you've got to be able to run the ball, and you got to be able to play defense to win championships, and the Falcons can't do either one of them.
No,
well, now that
Dallas
they've improved
can.
their defense, they may be able to play good defense. But what's going to happen is if you don't have a running game, is your good defense is going to be out on the field for 3/4 of the game. Because even with the offensive scheme the Falcons run, if they score in 2 or 3 plays, they don't even drive the ball down the field. Then the defense has got to go right back out there, and you can have all world players you want on defense, but if they're tired, they're not going to get the job done. As Vince Lombardi once said, fatigue makes cowards of people.
All right, we mentioned Bobby Hebert. I sort of questioned that move, signing. We already had Chris Miller. Why go out and sign a guy and pay him more than Miller and call him the backup?
And Bobby Joe or Billy Joe, or they have him too.
That's right. Billy Joe's still around.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to do that, why did they lose Wade Wilson, who I thought was really a good quarterback?
I thought Wade did an excellent job last year.
So I don't understand those moves at all. If anyone can, I'd like to hear
Give us a
the
call.
understanding of it.
Give us a call and explain these Falcons. Maybe Jerry will call. He called a radio call-in show earlier in the month, I think.
All right. We don't want to run out of topics. We only got a couple minutes left. How about NCAA baseball? Georgia Tech was eliminated for the 9th time in a row from the regional here.
Yeah, they've never made it. And that was really a good team this year, and I thought they would make it, but Wichita State beat them in that 5-4 game, so another tough loss for Tech.
Well, the game that cost them was the Ohio State game. They had no business losing to that Ohio State team, but they ran out of pitchers. They had a pitcher hurt.
Yeah, I think one of their best ones was hurt, right?
Yeah, and they just couldn't. They couldn't run 3-4 guys in a tournament like that out at you, and they overworked the one pitcher. Begins with a B, I can't remember. But I think Wichita State's got as good a chance as any. In Texas, if not Wichita State, I'll take one of those two teams.
Well, Arizona State's up there again.
They're always in it, aren't they?
I'm going to take one of the 2 schools from the Southwest Conference, Texas or Texas A&M. That was a pretty tough league this year.
Does the SEC still have, is LSU still
LSU's
in?
still in. They're
LSU's in it, yeah.
Always good. Well,
do we want to hit on the Stanley
Indy
Cup?
500? Well, I think we already talked.
Let's hit on the Stanley Cup.
Let's talk about the
Who
Stanley.
won the Indy 500?
And let's hit on the Stanley Cup. Jay,
right.
what do you think are some of the keys for Los Angeles to doing this? I think that Montreal is the prohibitive favorites here. What's Los Angeles? What do you think they're going to need to do?
They can't get caught up in that the mental part of the game, saying, "Well, we're prohibitive underdogs. Anything we do is good." You got to go into this saying you're one of the 2 best teams in the whole league, and you have just as much right to win this thing. And right now, LA's playing really well. So the great one's on top of his game.
I think Gretzky's a man on a mission. I wouldn't count LA out at all.
They have much more than that, though. I mean, he's the spark that makes them go.
It's Edmonton South, basically, if you look at their roster.
Yeah. You got to try and. I'm kind of pulling for LA. I want the cup to be in America. How about you, Ty?
No, I'm pulling for Montreal. That's my team ever since the Flames left. I think what Jacques Demers is going to do is that he's going to probably pick out 2 players on his team to follow Wayne Gretzky. As you stop Gretzky, I think you stop a lot of the rest of the team. True, they have other great players, Luc Robitaille, Marty McSorley, several high goal scorers. But I think as you stop Gretzky, that has an effect on the rest of the team. And I think Jacques Demers is going to grab 2 people and just send these guys out to just hit Gretzky whenever they get a chance to get in his lanes, to get in his zones, try and keep him from getting off, try to prevent him from getting on stride. He is the one that they want to stop, and if they do, I think Montreal will win in 6.
All right. I don't mean to cut you off, but they're rolling the credits on us. We'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next Tuesday night at the same time, and Melissa will be in this chair.